It's not getting in.
Welcome everybody out there in podcast land. The Good Times with Good People Company proudly present the Loft Party Podcast, where it is always about good times, good people, and good talk. Good. Now that you've received your invitation, join us. Grab a cocktail, light a cigar, or whatever you like to smoke. Tell a friend, and welcome to the party. I'm your host and moderator, Rio, and let's introduce today's panel. First, our returning champion, Chris O'Connor. He's the co-owner of Liquid 9 Broadcast Media. We have got the brothers Grimm, Lane, and Connor Boland. We have got Dave Elliott. We like to call him Big Dave. He is the owner of C&P Construction. We have got Ben Roberts, the Pendergast Club's resident bartender extraordinaire. And of course, the anonymous female, because she doesn't want you to know her name. And today, we are talking about a peaceful transition. So, as we start every show, we want to start with our RIPs. And today, our RIPs are not our normal RIPs. Because our first RIP is Tilikum, the killer whale, has passed away. And yes, I did say the killer whale because, one, that is the species, and two, he has killed shit before.
What did he die from?
I don't know. Actually, they finally took him out of service at SeaWorld, and then he died.
I thought it was human botulism.
The
The last one he did was kind of caustic.
I don't know. I mean, the way I figure it.
So what you're saying is the whale died like an American male, retired.
Shouldn't buy humans.
Yes, that's exactly.
Do not eat a human. We're very, very bacterial.
That's exactly what happened.
No shit to kill.
No shit to kill.
And
Might as well crawl up and die.
Dude, I hit my 2-year anniversary this March.
Oh, come on. We're laughing over this. It's terrible.
Yeah,
it's a somber moment. Come on.
This is horrible, ladies and
We
gentlemen.
are terrible.
This is horrible.
Yeah.
And our other...
Tilly and Harambe, they're in a better place.
First whales to ever die.
Good gravy. Good gravy. I expected this band of yahoos to fall alive.
Somebody should make a T-shirt of Harambe riding Tilly in heaven.
No, you shouldn't have that podcast later. No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't do that.
That's awesome.
They've also obviously had some time to rest.
Yes, apparently they've had a little rest.
All right.
And the other is the death of an American institution, the Ringling brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. Between slumping ticket sales and PETA protests, it just wasn't financially feasible to keep the doors open.
Couldn't compete with Congress.
It doesn't seem as if. So it looks as if they're going to retire the animals to some different types of sanctuaries.
Like a hunting safari?
To Tilikum
Oh my
National
god,
Museum.
they should auction off for charity the right to shoot these animals on a hunting preserve.
Yeah,
So what we're going to do is we're never going to do an RIP that's not a human again. Because these people do not know how to act.
One to add to the list to kind of change the subject.
Do you know how much a lion fetches in South Africa? I'm sorry, go ahead.
You'll have to forgive me because I'm not really familiar with the team. But a player by the last name of Ventura from the Royals died this weekend.
Yeah, which I didn't add to the list because I knew somebody at the table would bring that up, and that would actually bring everybody back into line.
This is probably a bit
jokes,
premature to
you
ask this
people.
question. I'm not making a joke, but will we get compensated with a draft pick for losing him?
No.
If only.
I mean, it doesn't count against your salary cap.
Oh, okay.
Other than that, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not
podcast
the
land.
Financial side.
Wear your effing seatbelt.
Yeah.
Once again, Edward Jones. It does not count.
Especially if you're worth millions of dollars.
Back to the money's
Yeah.
Your freaking seatbelt.
Yeah, the thing that I thought about with Ventura passing is it's probably not a good idea when you're worth a shit ton of money to leave the country. Because it seems as if
I don't know.
starting
Look at
back.
Paul Walker, he died in the United States.
Yeah, but I was just thinking going back to like Left Eye from TLC. Like they
So
go to
curious.
like
Yeah.
they go to Dominican or
That's
just,
some of the worst roads in the world.
yeah, and
You
those
have
are
a
the
1 of 480 chance.
Yeah, those are
of
the
dying.
places that they
Didn't
die.
his
They
brother
don't
die
die
2 years
here.
ago or something in the Dominican too? Or I know his brother died a couple years ago.
If I'm not
I didn't
mistaken,
hear
yeah.
that part.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Honestly,
if it was in the Dominican.
That's where the kid grew up. He,
Yeah.
left school at 14. I'm not gonna say he's the best in the
And-
class, but he's
and-
one hell of a pitcher. And I mean, lived for whatever it's worth. Yes, he died young, but he lived one hell of a great life, and he was a cool dude and a great teammate. And I just think it's sad that he's gone so early because he would have been a baller for a while.
Yeah. His next 5 years have been fun to watch.
Yeah, what was he,
Would've been
24?
25.
25? Yeesh.
And
why I'm
man,
saying
if
the
you
30
remember
even-
him just throwing baseballs at people's heads and ribs, like anytime, like he was a classic, true baseball player. Like you fucked with the guy on the team, and you were gonna have it coming right back at you on the next inning. And he broke a dude's ribs, I think.
Yep.
Well, you know he
and
modeled
hit another
himself
dude in the elbow.
Nolan Ryan.
He modeled himself after Pedro Martinez.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so it was
It
just
was a
like
great
that.
role model.
Yeah, perfect. They were
That's
the same.
That's the way I like baseball.
Pedro would take the ball and hit you with it without even thinking twice
You're
about it.
supposed to. That's part
Yeah,
of the game.
that's baseball.
Like baseball should not be the sissy game that it is. Like
Yes,
if you
I agree.
if you pluck somebody with a baseball, then you should expect to be just ass whooped in the next inning by the pitcher.
Yeah.
That's the way that it goes.
I
and
agree.
then you do a dugout clearing brawl. You fight like girls for about 10 minutes, and then they put you back in your place.
Chris,
and you're done.
what do you expect? The NFL has turned into a men's game of tag.
Dude, there's still some good fights in the NFL, and there's been some good hits in the playoffs.
Oh, I see.
Really good hits.
Seen some really good hits in the playoffs. I mean, these guys have been tagging them.
Yeah, I think I think you up your game when the adrenaline's going, and your paycheck's on the line. And
Couple
B,
million
it's
bucks are on
just-
the line.
There's that, but I also think when you play sports, you just want to win so bad, and when you get that close, you amp up your game, and it's not even a mental thing. It's not like they don't try hard every week.
Right.
It's just something bizarre comes out of you when you're that close to winning. You know what I mean? Like, dude, come on.
So what do we? So how do you explain the Browns?
The Browns have never been close to winning. So then I think what happens is
What are you talking about,
The
Lane?
exact opposite. You start to tank it a little bit, and you're like,
I'm
okay, I
sorry,
don't wanna get
Cleveland.
hurt.
That actually is kind of
Oh,
accurate, though.
God.
Like, I'm
Browns
sorry.
are terrible. Come on.
Totally off subject, but
We
we
had
get
a great run with the Cavs, and you've had a good run with the Indians. So
Yeah.
you should be
in
feeling
a
those
fantasy
too.
matchup of, let's say, the Broward Community College versus the Cleveland Browns. Who would you take?
I would take Butler County Junior College.
I would take Wichita.
Wichita State's football team, which has not been around since '85. Still winning.
That is horrible. That's just horrible.
Savage.
Wow. Savage. Yeesh. So,
Onward and outward.
yeah. In thinking about what to do for today's show, it didn't take me very long because we just had the inauguration of the 45th President of the United States, Donald John Trump. What I thought about originally was something that you said about, Chris, about the peaceful transition of power, and that's a hallmark of...
It's a very wise point that I made.
yeah, it was wise. It was
We
wise.
have a podcast.
It was wise. I thought to myself, this is a peaceful transition, but for the first time that I can remember, not maybe in history, but in modern politics, the day after and days subsequent were fraught with protests, but not only American protests, worldwide, there were protests.
Their voice doesn't matter.
I honestly don't give a shit who else in the world protests.
But
Protest all you want. Like, you guys protest over everything in every other country.
yeah, there was at least between all of the major cities that actually held the protests for the Women's March in particular. There was at least 2 million women nationally, if not more. If
Women?
not,
Really?
yeah, if not, well, I know that there were more than just women
It
showing up.
was 2 to 3 million worldwide,
I would-
and there was one in every state. In the
Venture
United States.
something positive came out of that day. In one day, the Trump administration got more fat women out walking than the Obama administration did in 8 years.
You're a horrible human
Come
being.
on, come on, anonymous female. I see you smiling.
He's just something me. It's bad.
You're a horrible human being. You're horrible.
That's
And
why he's
whoever,
here.
actually,
See what
whoever
no
did
one
that
else
meme
will.
was horrible.
I can honestly tell you, I have a hard time,
I'm kidding.
and this is gonna turn south really fast, and this is where Jackie's wrath will come out, and I will feel it very soon. But not on this female.
Chris, I'm in
Yeah,
the same
that,
boat with
sorry.
you, so.
When you're 51% of the population, one, you don't all agree. So when you're talking about women's rights, like, I know so many women who, one, hate other women. You don't even agree on what the issues are. Like, we're fighting for women's rights. Well, what are the rights? And they're like, well, it's your body, your choice. Well, I know a ton of pro-life women, so they completely disagree with you. So I'm not sure what exactly the march was for. I'm humiliated for the guys who showed up. I think that's embarrassing. Like, you should go home. Like, you didn't read the brochure that said it's a march for women. Like, stay home.
It didn't say a march of women.
Come
it said
on.
a march for women.
Listen,
Oh,
it's ridiculous.
good point,
It's
good point.
ridiculous. So, again, if there was a march for dudes,
Language
I don't
means
think a
things.
lot of women are showing up unless they're looking for a date, and that's the only thing the guys were doing. We're looking for a date. That showed up there.
That's not true.
Come
There were a
on.
couple of guys that, that of women I know directly that participated, that their fathers went out to march with them in support.
I find it embarrassing. I think it's ridiculous as a guy to go out and march in a women's rally. Like, God bless you. I don't even know what we're marching about because most women can't even agree on what the common subjects are and get consensus on them. So it's just a march to say I'm a woman. Well, congratulations. You're already 51% of the population. I love you dearly. God knows I would like a lot of women. So, very fair. But I'm like, it's just, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it reminds me in a sense of the way the civil rights movement had gone, where I can completely get behind marching for the right to vote. What I don't understand is getting behind a march that says I don't want to show an ID when I vote. Like, that's a different issue. I'm like, literally, you don't have an ID with your picture on it? Like, are you kidding me? This shit. I can't get on a plane or buy a drink or do anything else without an ID. But I can vote without one?
And I
That's
agree with Chris on that.
nonsense.
I do not understand the argument behind
It's just continuing to look for little things to get pissed off about, and I'm like,
So if you go out to the Women's March website,
Yeah.
they have their goals out there, what their unity goals are. Ending violence,
Okay.
reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights,
How many women
workers'
do you
rights,
think agree on all those things?
civil rights. You don't have to march if you don't agree with it.
No. But what I'm saying is they're representing this as we're united women, we're getting together, this is
Well,
our-
the women
Yeah.
that
No.
march are united. I mean, you don't
Well,
have
wait a
to
second.
agree.
Then represent yourself as a liberal women's march, and I agree with that. I'm totally cool with that. But don't pretend that every woman on Earth, out of a 6
I don't
billion,
think
7
they
billion
said every woman
population,
on Earth.
oh my God,
I don't think they did.
so wanted to represent all women. And I'm like, women are the cattiest people to each other that I know. They don't even. I bet
God,
there were
they
a
went
million
there.
fights in the march. I can't even imagine. Like, it had to just be brutal. Like,
Well, it wasn't.
I'm
Nobody
better.
got arrested. Nobody.
Oh no, they just talked bad about each other and posted it on Facebook and Snapchat. So,
And they didn't clean up all their
that
signs.
happened.
They left them on the street. Now,
Brandy cleaned the house and made me dinner.
give me a minute. Give me a minute here. This letter was sent to my wife from
The views and opinions of the men sitting at the panel beside myself do not reflect the full views and opinions of the Loft Party Podcast.
Okay.
Now back to our scheduled program.
I have just give me a minute here because I need to read this. This is, and I won't read it all because it's fairly long. But this is my wife's cousin's wife, who grew up dirt poor, was beat so bad by her husband the guy ended up in prison, among other things he did wrong. Yeah. And she ended up marrying Billy, and they became very successful. They're multimillionaires now. And so she worked up. But this is a friend of hers that wrote this. And I thought it was interesting, a different view from a woman looking at the other side of the view. I am not a disgrace to women because I don't support the Women's March. I do not feel I'm a second-class citizen because I am a
She
woman.
didn't write that. That's going all over Facebook.
Yes, but this is a friend of hers. Okay,
That sent it
And it's
to
all-
her, but her friend didn't write that.
No.
Yeah.
But she knows who this woman is.
Okay.
That's my point.
See, even
Second class citizen. I do not feel my voice is not heard because I am a woman. I do not feel I'm provided opportunities in life for America because I am a woman. I do not feel like I don't have control of my body or choices because I am a woman. I do not feel like I am not respected or undermined because I am a woman. I am a woman. I can make my own choices. I can speak and be heard. I can vote. I can work if I want. I control my body. I can defend myself. I can defend my family. There's nothing stopping me to do any in this world but myself. Okay, which is kind of where I'm at too. Wanted to go. I'm a mother, a daughter, a wife, a sister, a friend. I'm not held back in life by the walls that I choose not to go over, which is a personal choice. Quit blaming, take responsibility. If you want to speak, do so, but do not expect for me, a woman, to take you seriously wearing a pink VOD JJ hat on your head and screaming for profanities and bashing men.
And I think that's a reasonable point. And I will say
I
this.
think she has whoever wrote this had a reasonable.
I'm for equality all the way around. I've never given a crap. Our highest paid employee is a woman. Like, I think it's great, and I'm not against anything that women have fought for, and I'm not stupid enough to think that there's probably not some issues that still exist. It's just that I thought this was a little bit silly. And again, I really despise, like everybody who knows me, I've given this speech 1,000 times. My least favorite phrase in the world is, "Oh, what a strong woman," because it insults every other woman on earth, as if it's such a surprise that a woman can. And it's misused. It's not you're physically strong. You just ran a successful business, or you accomplished something. Congratulations, you're supposed to accomplish something. Like, everybody expects you to. That's not a surprise.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you strong. It doesn't make you anything. It just makes you a good business person or whatever else the case was. And I find it to be incredibly insulting to other women. I always have, and I think it's a disgusting phrase. And I mean, I'm way more feminist than most dudes you're ever going to meet. I hire as many women as I can in power positions to be professionals, because I think they handle themselves better than guys do sometimes.
And I'm right there with you.
But I just
My wife was in a position of power.
should be. I mean, honestly, when you deserve it, you should be.
But
then you get into things
A lot of our
like,
friends are women that own their own businesses.
you get into things like equal pay for equal work. Well, then now you're starting to get into weird stuff, because now you have to define what equal is. And it's like, well, I should be paid for, if I want a family, I should be able to take it. Well, you're working less. So now it's not equal pay for equal work. Generally speaking, every study, and even the Department of Labor would put out studies that they already have that defend this position. It's like, if you look on an hourly rate, it is very, very, very similar. It is that a lot of women, particularly of childbearing age, work less hours because they have kids. And that's a choice. That's a choice, that's not a right. So I'm like, that's a different thing. So I have a hard time with the march just in general. One, because I think marches are stupid. Secondly, I would never get out of bed to march for anything. I would be really tired, and there was football on, I think, that day. But, I was like, no. Just, nothing's ever changed from a march. There's maybe only one march in the entire history of the world that ever changed anything, and that was the March on Selma, I would say. But other than that, do whatever you want.
March
all you
long
want
enough.
and have
We
at
have to
it.
stop
But
women's suffraging now.
I really have a hard time with women's suffrage when you're 51% of the population. Then why don't you guys agree with each other, vote everybody out of office, get all chicks in there, and you guys would win. And great, you can pass every law you want. But until then, it's not so bad.
Why are you talking like directly to me?
Because you're the only woman at the table. I mean, honestly, you just defended the march.
I didn't defend or
That's what the
whatever
march
the
is
march.
saying.
You said you didn't know what they were marching for, and I was telling you what they were marching for.
No. I did already understand the list of things that they had said.
What did you feel
I
are
still
the
thought
most
they were
important
silly.
issues that they marched for? I asked a whole lot of different women today because I was trying to get a consensus. I'm not trying to come in and be a narrow-minded
Well,
butthead.
to me,
I was trying to get a
you're
consensus.
talking to the wrong person because I'm involved in the women's group at work. I watch women's
No.
issues. I see the salaries of the women and the men that I work with, and they are not comparable.
Michelle will tell you the same
For
thing.
the same hours, the same knowledge, the same time, they're not comparable. But it is what it is, and they're choosing, to stay there. You negotiate when you go in what you feel you're worth.
Then negotiate better.
So,
Yeah. Well, and but
that's the thing, though. That's the thing that is a little bit harder for some women. Not all women. Negotiation is very hard for women. It's very hard for them.
Okay, well, that sucks, but get over it and get
But what are
better
your
at it.
main issues about the march?
For me, my main issue, truly...
What do you feel the march's main issue?
I can't answer that. I can answer me personally. I don't feel that you should tell somebody what their reproductive rights are. For me, I am pro-life. I do not have the right to tell Carolyn that she should be pro-life. I'm pro-choice for everybody else. And I think that that's a fair thing to be. I should not tell you what's okay for you.
Do you
I
feel-
don't live your life. I don't have your values. I don't know anything about what's going on with you and your family. So it's not right for...
Everybody does. Everybody has an opinion, and they vote. They vote in a particular way, which exercises that decision making and that judgment. And I would say that there's a very valid argument, and I am hyper pro-choice, and it has saved my life 1,000 times. But what I would say is, I can understand the flip side of it, which is, first off, generally speaking, if you're going to exclude rape from the issue, which I would hope that we would, which is less than 1 to 2% of the abortions that happen in the United States. It was consensual sex, that there was a decision made at that point, which everybody knows the risk of it is pregnancy. And I swear to God, if there was something where I knew that I was going to bear 90% of the responsibility when this was done, I would really think through it pretty hard.
I'm
unless I
not
was really
saying
drunk,
that there's
which
not
happens.
women
But-
there's not women that abuse that they're like, oh, well, I always have the choice of abortion because
it's birth
I know
control.
women like that, and I don't
think so.
agree with it. But I'm not the one that has to live with the decision that you make. I'm not the one that's scarring your body, and when you decide you want to have kids, you probably won't be able to. But they have to live with that.
Well-
And I think that is how it should be. You should have the right to do what you want to do.
I think there's a legitimate argument that the right to do what you want to do happened before you had sex, and you could have said no, knowing what the consequences were.
Okay, but we've had this conversation last time. I got pregnant with my daughter, and I was on birth control.
I understand that
My aunt has a child, and her husband wore 2 condoms at a time. Now, can you
Everybody-
even imagine that?
Everybody on earth brings up a personal example, and I get it. I'm saying statistically, and if we're being honest with each other, then less than 1 to 2% of abortions are due to failed birth control. There's nothing.
But you
come
know
on,
what?
Let's be honest. In those
It
cases,
still
if you could,
isn't my place to tell somebody that it's okay or not.
but we do on all kinds of things. We constantly do.
But we're talking about the Women's
as
March and
individuals.
women's rights right now. I am truly I don't have the right to tell you what's okay.
Yes,
I
you
don't
do.
care what it's about.
Yes, you do.
I don't.
You vote for politicians who do. We have laws in this society
Well,
that do.
I would hope that
all-
we would vote for politicians that have the same values that we have.
And so your values are the politicians that you vote for, and my values would be the ones that I vote for. And so
Right.
they would probably at times differ on things, and that is a judgment call. So that is literally the exact same as telling me I have a right to do something or right not to, because they will enact laws that reflect that judgment. And so I would say, and again, I'm hyper pro-choice. I mean, I thank God for Roe versus Wade every day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I understand
Sounds
why.
like a whole nother podcast.
I do understand why there is a flip side of it, and I don't think it's an illegitimate one. I think people want to just write them off as religious crazies, and I'm like, no. There is a very valid other side, and this is where I have a problem with a women's march, because literally half the women in this world think pro-life, and half the world think pro-choice, and they don't agree at all. I would rather see this march in Saudi Arabia where it makes a difference, where they actually are being persecuted and held down and they don't have civil rights, they have nothing.
Well, that
I
is
think
part
Mali
of
would
what
have
agree
mutilated.
that is part of what the march was,
I-
and that's
I-
why
I
they
get
tried.
it.
You know, I
That's
mean,
true. You're
you
right
can
on that.
you can
It was
agree or
supposed to
disagree
it's
to
supposed
why
to be a global thing.
it
and I
was
get
a
it.
global thing.
It was kind of a global thing, except for the countries where they put it down because women aren't allowed to march.
Well,
But,
I mean,
you know,
you look at Russia;
still
they
like-
have to have government approval to march.
Well,
So-
you have to in the United States. They
Well,
had to
the
get
government's not going to let that. It doesn't
They had to
matter.
get a permit.
Well, you got to get a permit, but in other countries, that literally permit or not, it's just not going to happen.
Well,
So-
But
there
to
would be
go,
people
but
who
to go
deny.
back to, I'm not. You thought I was going to be upset by that, and I'm not, because that woman has the right to feel that way.
Yes.
But
Well, I just
what's
wanted to
in
give you
that
full
post?
warning I was coming at you.
But
with
what's in that post? I mean, half of my friends posted that. It's their right to feel that way. It's when you start bashing people for the way they feel that it becomes an issue.
Yeah, and there wasn't any bashing in there. It
No.
was just a disagreement.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I want to bring up too, as far as subject goes, it seemed to me like a lot of them were after Trump because of his locker room talk.
That's all it was. It was honestly
And-
a bunch of Democrats.
yeah.
It's not
So,
a women's march. It's
why
a
didn't they march
Democratic
on-
women's march.
So why didn't they march on Bill Clinton when he was screwing around with interns in the office?
Always one of the things I've always wondered, because
You know, it's
the
hypocrisy.
NWA came out. The NWA supported Clinton and actually came out on his side after he's screwing a 20-year-old.
the NAACP?
Yeah,
No,
I was
no,
going to say the
National
NWA.
National Women's Organization. the
Okay, I
NWA.
was just finna say Ice Cube came out and said
That's
something.
the National Women's Organization. Gloria Steinem. They all came out in favor and supported him, and I'm like,
I was like, bro.
Wait,
I'll tell you this.
That's massive
Wait a minute.
hypocrisy.
I'm an idiot.
Massive hypocrisy.
I would say this,
And that's what bothers me.
If it was the CEO of IBM who was caught fucking an intern in a closet, he would have been fired immediately, and he would have been gone, and there would have been no questions asked, and every women's group on earth would have said, this is an example, yet another example of a rich white guy taking advantage of some little kid, girl, you know, he didn't know any better, and what we have to put up with to try to get ahead in the world, and yet you have the president do it, and he gets a clean pass on everything. I mean, it's a load of bullshit. There's a lot of hypocrisy, and I wish women would be consistent in the way they stand up for each other.
Exactly. That's kind of my
Yeah,
point I was
I
trying to
really
make too.
do.
My mother had an interesting situation. She took a car in to get fixed down in Florida, sitting beside the lady letting her car service to, and got to talking to this guy. And she was a lobbyist in Washington, and she says there's two people in Washington you never get on an elevator with. One's Bill Clinton, the other one's Teddy Kennedy, because they will molest you. And she wasn't joking.
Well, I'd give it a good shot if they were good looking, but I mean, yeah, you just give it your.
But you're not a politician, are you?
No, not at all.
You're just Chris, and we know that's going to happen.
Listen,
and I'm going to do it in a little different way. You know, at least I'm going to try to court him before I molest
That's
him.
exactly right. I'll be a gentleman about it, but I'm going to make a solid effort.
Once again, out there in podcast land, the views and opinions expressed away on the panel do not reflect the Loft Party podcast as a whole. Thank you.
Spicy this morning.
I'm curious what you guys think, though.
I'm waiting for the opportunity to be the most offensive possible, just for the sake of
Just for
comedy.
the sake of comedy. Right.
And Ben, I mean,
I don't have.
What about
I don't have ovaries.
Chris and I'll show up.
You know,
Don't care.
I do know that.
Let's talk about something that matters.
I was gonna say I do know that Ben tends to lean feminist in a lot of respects. So I'm curious your thoughts on.
I think there are some very real concerns when it comes to women and the Trump administration. Not just because of the lascivious locker room talk, as they say, but also the very real prospect of defunding a lot of Planned Parenthood and the resources that just benefit the health of women in general in this country so overwhelmingly much. And why we would get rid of a program that's so effective and successful.
Well, you know, I do think a lot of people assume Planned Parenthood's modus operandi is abortions, but I know a lot.
They actually counsel against it.
Yeah, but I know a lot. I know a lot
They
of
counsel
women
against it.
They get their actual health care. Through Planned Parenthood because
the prevention of
cervical
cancer, STDs.
Well, you have teenagers that don't want to talk or can't.
Well, we're busy talking about who can fuck who and what the consequences of it are. The real news of Saturday was Trump signed an executive order repealing Obama's target of the FHA mortgage rate.
Mm-hmm.
Which we were going to get to.
He signed more executive orders today.
Which we were going to get to.
But that is primarily important to baby boomers because the average American at 62 has about $150,000 liquid net of their home. So the trend right now is boomers are either taking a reverse mortgage out on their house, which is a minority, or they're selling their homes on the open market, taking that equity to fund their retirements and living in an apartment building. The people on every side of a transaction where there's a seller, there has to be a buyer, right? So the people that are buying those homes are the up and coming generation, which when you raise interest rates, transactions go down because less people qualify, right? So by what was a very short-sighted economic boon to the government and to the banks is ultimately going to prove poisonous to the economy at large because, okay, let's back it out again even further. 80% of our, actually it's more like 70, but 70% of our economy is consumer spending, of which the majority of that is largely driven by home equity.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we're fucking with boomers' retirements, we're fucking with the economy, all by one little piece of legislation that was completely masked by people arguing over who's got control over the ovaries. Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, who fucking cares? Let's focus on the money.
It always comes back to money.
Well,
okay, so come out and defend the slower hike in interest rates.
What's that?
Because a lot of
this has nothing to do with the Fed.
No.
This is independent of that.
So, first of all, let me jump in here.
Real come out and defend slower hikes in interest rates.
Sure, they did.
So let me jump in here and say, since I did not say what the Brothers Grimm do, Lane is particularly in the financial industry, and he deals with retirement funds quite a bit. So out there in podcast land, this is probably a voice you want to actually listen to, where
and development
and real estate
on that.
Yeah. Now, I'm actually torn by this piece of legislation because on one hand of my balance sheet, it just preserved the value proposition of my apartment building real estate business or development business, but on the other hand, it's really screwed my retiree clients. So it's just like, like everything in this world, it's a zero-sum game, right? There are winners and losers, and I feel really awkward being on both sides of this equation.
Yeah, you're in a pickle.
All right, so
personally, I'm doing great.
All right,
Not so much for you.
So what else was in the executive order? I'll say, so I know that was one piece of the executive order.
Well, it's different executive orders.
Yeah, but what else did he sign?
He also gave a waiver to General Mattis to become the first Secretary of Defense who was previously a general within 3 years of retirement since the 50s.
He didn't have to wait.
Which is
a fairly unanimous.
Yeah,
choice.
99-1.
Yeah.
He's the most qualified individual for the job.
I wanted him to be Secretary of State.
Yes.
I wanted him to be our chief diplomat.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Just that attitude.
Talk softly and have a plan to kill everyone in the room.
Yes.
You don't think Tillerson would have a similar attitude?
No, he's a money guy.
Yeah, he doesn't know shit about it.
You said it was about the money.
It is.
Not when it comes to foreign diplomacy.
Money doesn't kill people. Bullets fired by angry people kill people.
Over money.
Over money.
I'd rather solve it at the money level.
Speaking of money and trade deals and such, I was wondering your opinion on our withdrawal from the TPP.
Yeah, that was the other executive order. Good point, Ben.
Yeah.
Hey, pull us out of the TPP.
Yes. So
I support that move
Yeah.
personally, but I
Sure.
like I said, I'm not in finance.
No, and that's another thing, and I'm going to part with.
What do you think about that?
Look, this is just my opinion here, but as an economist, parting with the party line of Wall Street, who are champions of free trade, because that ultimately benefits capital. In other words, people that already have money. Our biggest asset as a country is our consumer base, right? True. Free trade gives away that asset for free, right? So these other countries that don't have a stake or are not stakeholders in the creation of our perfectly imperfect system, right? Do not have the right to compete openly in our markets.
Gotta pay to play.
Yeah, you have to pay to play. In other words, we have to preserve our consumer base, but two, also protect our own capital formation. Like, if people don't realize that money it's not a preserved asset. It dissipates. It goes away, and everything happens in these cycles, right?
Exactly.
So what I'm saying is, when we have free trade, we speed up that cycle of wealth creation and wealth destruction among our own citizenry. Anyway, what I'm getting at is, overall, it's going to be really bad for the multinational companies, but it's going to be really good for Main Street. So
it's a one or the other thing to me.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has to get on board, or everybody has to not be on board.
Right.
It's in a lot of ways, I would say it's like a communism or a socialist society where you need everybody to go with you, so you can be competitive and it all works together, and that's a great theory.
Right.
Or you need everybody to be opposed to it and just stay the hell away from it. When you half-ass it right in the middle, you're dead.
No, you're dead.
Then you're
So
screwed.
what about NAFTA? Is it the same situation?
Same. Let's pull out an NAFTA too.
No,
So
I love that.
so your question, he signed the
It is saying
mortgage,
those.
Yeah. It is the
and TPP or TT whatever,
right.
and then Mexico City abortion rules and the hiring freeze for federal agencies were the four that have been signed so far.
Yeah, anybody can overrule the federal hiring freeze. That takes 10 cents and an hour to do that. So big deal.
But
an executive order isn't a lot. I mean, like literally, Congress can just step in and go, you're a dipshit, so we're gonna bypass you.
I guess the real question is, do we think that
You're right.
the
I just think that's funny.
that the current party in power is going to do that?
I think they're going to start having a lot of very serious divisions very quickly. And I think Trump has been all over the map on a lot of the things that he said. Nobody actually knows what he stands for and what he wants to do. Even the Republicans have come out and
think
said,
it's genius.
we have no idea what the hell he wants
So
to do.
I was listening to a
To ride the party, you put in office and do what you want.
you want to make some
newscast.
duplicity in
I want to say, was it Saturday you came up here by
Yes.
yourself? And they were talking about how you really don't know if Trump's talking about what he really believes, if he's talking to just hear himself talk, or if he's saying something crazy so that when he tells you what he really wants to do, you're like, oh, okay, that's fine.
That seems more moderate.
Yeah.
You were crazy on your tweet, but now you backed off of your tweet, so
Yeah.
we'll let this one slide,
Doesn't
because
he
otherwise you sound
essentially
great.
describe that in his book, The Art of the Deal? How whenever you come to a deal, you
everybody
suggest something
that's-
outrageous,
Sure.
and then you back.
Everybody knows
But
that
that's
that's
what
what
you
you do
That's
in
been-
business.
That's
Yeah.
been something since Dale Carnegie's been
Right.
He threw that out as a great
that in
plan on
business.
negotiating.
But I guess what Jay's point is, we don't know if he's doing that or if he's
Yeah,
actually
you don't really know. Like, does he really believe that?
Yeah.
On a larger issue, I'll tell you this, because one of the things that you had thrown out was, and I don't know if we're getting there yet or not, but it was the peaceful transition of power.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, yes, obviously it's America, we do peaceful transition of power, although there have been people who've hated each other, who had to take that car ride together. And I love that. I love that awkward moment.
Well, it's funny. I was watching the inauguration and stuff that day, and it got me to thinking about just that. The Obamas and the Trumps and the car ride together, and
well, they don't all go together. The first ladies go together,
and then right,
the guys go together.
Right. So, but it makes me wonder about how awkward those car rides must really be.
Some of them are great and some of them are terrible.
Yeah.
If you ever want to read a great book, read the book called The President's Club, and it describes their relationships amongst the past presidents and who gets along and doesn't. So if you notice, what's weird to me, and this was, I guess, the point I was going to make was, as much as people did not like George Bush, the second one, younger one, as president, he and the Clintons are phenomenally good friends, and their entire families are very good friends. And strangely, Michelle Obama and George Bush are amazingly good friends. Very good friends.
Yeah.
And I believe that the only reason why is because there's a mutual respect for the office that was held, and nobody else understands the pressure that goes along with it, and they
It's a very
took
small
it very
club.
seriously. My biggest concern with Trump is that he doesn't give a shit about the institution. He doesn't care. It is just a joke, and he's like the only guy who's around, and it's the Trump show. And it has little respect for the institution, the traditions, the offices, those kinds of things. That's what makes me nervous.
Yeah, well, and it actually does make me nervous. One, yes, in modern times, of course, President Obama tweeted, but he tweeted under POTUS.
Yeah, they deactivated his personal Twitter account.
Yeah,
They reactivated it on Saturday.
Yes, but in this case, our new president is not going to tweet under POTUS. He's going to tweet under Donald J.
Well, he does
Trump.
have the POTUS account.
He does.
Well, whoever is president
All
has it.
hail Caesar.
But
They archive everything before that.
This is a
and
new thing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first time they've ever transitioned that authority. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting and probably ill-advised that he would be allowed to keep Donald J. Trump as president. Now, it could be because under Donald J. Trump, he can still say ridiculous shit.
Yeah.
And he probably knows he shouldn't do that under POTUS. So he fought to not use POTUS and use the one he's been using. But
at the end of the day, people know who he is. Why should the division be even allowed?
Because Donald, if you tweet under,
He shouldn't be allowed to post this
tweet
ridiculous
under
shit.
Trump,
Period.
it's all going to be about
Well,
President
yes.
Donald
Most people
and what's
agree
going
with
on
that,
TV. And then you can have your separate one for important matters.
But even
That would be like
Obama,
Ronald Reagan
when
being
he
able
would
to make
actually-
speeches that weren't presidential.
well,
he
most
did all
of
the time.
and most of the tweets from the POTUS account weren't him. They say on there if it's
They were
from
pretty good
him,
speeches.
it has BO under it or after it, so
Right.
that you would know he actually said it or it was just the White House.
Yeah, and he said he wanted to be very active on the presidential Twitter. I'm like, oh,
But every time you get BO underneath it, I wanted to send him a case of Sure.
Please do not.
I thought he had an underarm problem or something.
It's alarming. I mean, the thought of him tweeting on the presidential Twitter account as the president saying stupid shit just drives me nuts. Like that, keep it on your personal stuff. It's like the difference between LinkedIn and Facebook.
And,
Like,
and
put stupid
Lane's
shit on
over here
Facebook.
going, "Oh,
Right,
it doesn't
Lane,
matter."
I want to ask our economists a question, because the one thing that Trump has done that I find very interesting is all the different people from the private sector he's brought in and met with. What do you see with that, Lane?
I follow the money. They're all contributors of his.
Right.
I don't agree with having
Well, the ones that
5
weren't-
picks from Goldman Sachs.
And their previous partners at various levels of the deals.
Why would you not agree with that?
They've paid to play.
Well, and that's
You
my
really think
problem.
that's all the meetings he's having is pay for play?
That is a
absolutely.
Democratic and a Republican tradition. Like, you always meet with your supporters right after.
Well, I'm not mad
You think
at
if Hillary
meeting
was
with
in
your
office, she wouldn't
supporters.
be meeting with people right now. You don't think David Gevin's at the White House right now, hanging on the Lincoln bedroom, chilling out,
We've
listening
got
to
some
his own
similar
records?
people show up
Yeah.
like that.
My
You're
problem
kinda
isn't
going,
meeting with your supporters or anything. I mean, because like I say, everybody does that. My problem is nominating them to cabinet positions. Like the I can't remember her name right now.
Betsy DeVos?
Yeah, DeVos for education secretary.
It honestly
basically,
doesn't
her family's just given $200 million to the Republican
Right,
Party. She knows
heir to
nothing
in the
It
Blackwater
doesn't matter because
families.
ultimately they're subject to senatorial approval, but
Right.
two,
which
they're
is
also
predominantly Republican.
But
right
it
now.
doesn't matter. They're also accountable to said Senate. So what I'm getting at is they don't get impeached. They literally get forced into resignation.
True.
So what I'm saying is it doesn't matter.
And I would say beyond that, if you look at education,
They're not elected
specifically,
officials.
That's a great position to give to somebody who you don't give a shit about, who just gave you money, because literally the federal government has nothing to do with education. It's 2% of the money. It's a block grant to the states, and the states can use it however they want. Almost all education is done at the state level. Has nothing to do with federal money in most
but they
cases.
do get federal money.
They get a 2% block grant. That's what they get.
2% of what? Their total funding, or
Of the total funding in this
yeah.
country of education,
Yeah.
2% of it is federally
2%
funded.
of the federal,
It is a
right.
nothing. Most people didn't even want a Department of Education. They thought it was stupid. And so they completely underfund it, and it's all done at the state and local level.
I mean, and
It's a big deal.
it is a reasonably new cabinet position. I mean, it didn't
in the
it didn't
80s.
exist
It
before
started in the
1980.
When is it in Carter?
He's also not taking a
Yeah,
salary.
it was
Education.
it was proposed under Carter. It was actually
still
enacted
passed
under
under
Reagan, and so
For,
you know.
for us that are so
not
passionate
taking a salary.
about policy at a national
Taking
level,
a dollar. I'm sorry.
ultimately it's all controlled by Congress because Congress owns the purse strings. They literally own the money. So what I'm getting at is what's happened here is that the Democrats who previously literally owned local politics began kind of taking it for granted, especially in like the swing areas.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting at is if you're that passionate about national policy, start giving a really big shit about local policy.
Well,
And
Which
I
we
think-
talk about all the time on
Yeah.
here.
And I
Yeah.
think that will start to happen again.
Right.
I think every time a party has an ass whooping,
Yeah.
you know, then they start to pay attention to the little things again.
But
The fundamentals.
Yeah, so I think
to be honest,
that's
at a
what we're
state
going
and
to
local
see.
level, they've had an ass whooping for many years.
Yeah, but I think that the Democrats.
It's just like Ohio State getting crushed in the college football playoffs.
Yeah, I think now that
Screw you, Ohio
I
State.
think that now not only you lost the presidency, because it's one thing to lose it. I think it's another thing to lose the electoral college in the way that the Democrats did. And yes, the Democrats won a popular vote, but you know this is chess, not checkers, and since it is chess, the Republicans just played better chess this time.
She just lost by not trying.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I'm saying.
wholeheartedly
She
agree with
decided not to play chess. She forgot it was chess, I think.
I have a question for Lane. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
please.
So I thought I read
Good
it.
Lord, Lane, you're the guru of the night.
I thought I read it over the weekend that Trump assigned to allow the increase for military members.
I didn't hear about that.
Increase in pay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wow.
2.1%.
Okay.
Well, there's a yearly average of the pay raises between a percentage and a half or 2%.
They try to measure it against inflation, don't they?
Indeed.
And cost of living index?
Indeed. Yeah.
Well,
Which they're still below, but
it's- yeah.
they're but it was, if I'm not
Although
mistaken,
they
2
don't-
or 2.2%.
The military
increase.
feels that they have a champion in Trump, don't they? And they didn't feel like they had a champion when Obama did.
Oh,
they?
because he served.
I mean,
he served
And I don't see how that's. I don't see how that's actually.
The military almost always goes
Anyway,
Republican, right?
what would you?
Like,
what
But I don't-
does-
but I don't
almost
see
always means an increase in defense spending.
But
more
is
money spent
that
on
a good
toys.
thing? I mean,
which
You
is
know,
strange.
I
to
think
say
this
that
is
we're
just
so
playing
Democrat.
politics with the military.
with
I
Austin,
really feel
when
that
he
way.
was in,
Okay.
when he
Yeah.
was in, I never understood why they had to pay for their own uniforms and had to.
Well, no, they
The
were
officership does.
The
Yeah,
officers
enlisted
do.
members
He
get
had
a
to-
stipend.
You're
He
giving
didn't.
us. You're giving
He
us.
did not.
No, you're given a stipend, and you're required to use that stipend for the uniforms. Now, if you blow it on hookers and beer,
Now,
I mean,
is that Army or all? Because
Then you're
that's
in the million
the
one
Department
Not
of
a deal.
Defense.
okay,
Well, I don't know what happened
Yeah, if
totally
anything,
on
I
this,
think it's the worst
but I had a
thing.
friend of mine's son that was in Fallujah, Marine, and he had to run. Yet there was an open sewer there, and he literally had to run across this pipe, fell in the sewer. Of course, he trashed his boots. And I figured, well, the military's going to buy you another pair of boots. Oh no, his parents had to buy a set of boots and send them to him.
Yeah.
I never knew anything about anything like this, and I was just like,
Right. Anytime
"You got to be
Austin,
kidding me!"
he had to
this,
get
this
his
kid's getting
stuff
shot at
sewn
and
onto
falling in
his
shit,
uniform himself.
and you can't buy him a pair of freaking boots.
I will say
they're
this,
given
though.
$500 a year in a clothing allowance.
I would-
Enlisted members, receive a stipend right around tax season.
So he spent it on whores and beer.
They get money,
Yes,
and beyond that,
that's
I
exactly
also
what
feel
happened.
like we're a volunteer army. I mean, this has been a tradition for a very long time. We've always been a volunteer army, with rare exception. There have been exception few drafts in the history of this country. It's a volunteer army, so you know what you're getting.
I mean,
into.
because it's
I didn't understand.
it's
it.
a very
That's-
small stipend for clothes.
It just kind of blew me away.
Sure.
Like
well, and here's the thing.
you pay
though,
for your
like-
own body armor, or somebody
No,
pays
well,
for it.
well,
for
no,
you.
it's
That's
issued to you.
Now, if you lose
Yeah.
it,
If you lose, you got to pay for your own, or if you want
Okay,
something that's
okay,
rated
true
better
story.
than what the lowest.
Yeah.
I
fucking
caught a
bidder-
bullet in my chest plate, and I had to pay to replace that chest plate.
Okay.
So,
That's a little
and,
silly.
but it,
I mean, that part's a
No,
little
I'm
silly.
actually kind of proud of that.
Good job, dingus.
Well, you didn't get shot in the chest, did you?
it's kids not understanding how to budget.
I knew you got shot. I just
Like
wasn't sure
Austin,
when.
he spent a lot of his money on stupid
The other
video
one's in the
games
butt,
or
right?
books and
inner
food
thigh?
instead of going
In the
to
shoulder.
whatever you guys call the cafeteria and,
Otherwise known
and
as hookers.
having free food.
Well, I mean, that definitely depends on where you're stationed at, because certain postings don't have dining facilities, and so therefore they'll cut you an extra so many $100 a month to pay for your own food. But at the end of the day, no matter what is coming out of your check,
He was
it's listed on your DEROS, your statement of your pay and what different parts of your pay are allocated towards. If you have a dining facility on your posting,
He
money is
did.
subtracted
It was-
from your check to pay for it.
Obviously.
So if
It
you're not
was
eating
in-
there
he
and you're
was at
spending money
Pendleton.
at the
They
fucking
had it.
PX, that's your problem.
I honestly don't care. I mean, like, literally, at some point,
Supposed to be.
if you choose that as a profession, you follow by the IRS rules that go along with it. That is your chosen profession, so now you have to deal with it like anybody else in business does. Just being in the military, and I greatly respect military people, but it is a business too. That's your profession. That's how you make
Okay,
your money.
but at 18, were you smart about how you spent your money?
It doesn't matter.
You're an adult.
It doesn't. Wait a
But I'm
second.
asking
You can't
at
hold me.
18, were you smart about how you spent your
I
money?
was responsible for my mistakes.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you, did you spend your money wisely when you were an 18-year-old
Yes,
boy?
I dropped out of school and I had to work my ass off because I had no money at all. So yeah, I did. I watched every dollar and where it went, and because I didn't have any dollars.
That's why
And
they have.
so-
That's why they have baby bowl nights for a quarter, because you
We
can go
told
in for
him
$5
there
and get drunk.
were times that he went a week or more without food because he chose
never
to
missed
spend all
one.
his money.
Yep.
$3
And he-
at $3 at a grocery store you can eat for a week. Swear to God, you can eat for a week on $3 at a
I'm
grocery
not
store.
saying that.
Red
I'm
beans
just
and rice.
saying he chose to spend his money wrong,
So-
and he
so-
ended
so-
up not eating for a week.
The key point that you're making, and I this is where I have the problem, is always when you say the word he chose to do this.
Yeah.
This is my major problem with like nationalized healthcare and all these other things. I'm like, You choose to pick up a bar tab and watch cable TV and get Hulu and Spotify and yada yada, and you choose not to buy an insurance policy because you don't think that that's important enough. Well, you can afford the insurance.
Yeah.
It's the same reason why I really despise the fact that we have state laws against smoking in bars, for example. Like, literally, all it would have taken is a no smoking sign. That would have been voluntary. It would have been fine. But they chose not to do that, and they decided to make it a state law. I'm like, no. It should be a choice. You know?
By the way, you want to go where the smoke is, you go there.
Yeah.
Kansas City, I have a point to make on this, since we're sitting in the Pendergast Club, which is the only frickin' place we can do this. I was in Lincoln, Nebraska
We
last
drink and smoke up here
Yeah.
at the podcast, by the way, out there in podcast.
I was in
Land, for
Lincoln,
those of you who don't
Nebraska.
remember.
America.
And I went downtown to Jake's Cigars and Spirits. One side of the bar is non-smoking.
Been there.
The other side of the bar is smoking. It's a college bar. I was the oldest guy in there, but it was cool. Now my cousin is 1 year older than I am. So we were the two oldest guys in there. But we were able to sit down, have a drink, and smoke. And guess what? There was no food. So what? That's what it needs to be. If you just have a bar and you don't have any food. Because in Kansas City, in order to maintain your liquor license, you have to sell a certain amount of food.
No. There's 3 different liquor licenses that you can do. You can do a tavern license, which you don't have to sell any food at all, but that means that you have to close at 1 o'clock and you can't be open on Sunday. So that's one option that you have. The other,
I should know you'd known this.
well, you do too. So the other 2 are, you can apply for a license where you can stay open until 3, which requires approval from a whole shit ton of neighbors and all that other kind of stuff. Or you can choose to decide to sell at least 50% food. Because I think if you want to sell
That's what my wife
you
was
have to sell
talking
50%
about.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's what my
50%
wife
of your...
40 or 50.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that neck of the woods, and I forget what it is. So you have to sell at least a certain proportion of your overall revenue has to be food derived. And so this is where you get people ringing up vodka tonics as potatoes. You know, and stuff like that. You know, and it happens all the time.
That's why you force it on me all the time, Ben.
Yep.
All right, now I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually...
Vodka tonic potatoes, that's fitting.
It happens all the time.
yeah.
Made from potatoes.
It works.
Potato,
Hey.
potato.
It works.
So actually, that brings me back to the list, which brings me back to protest. But I think that
unbelievable how we get
it's
around
actually
these
not
things.
protest. It's the next item on my list, which is alternative facts. And I thought that that was actually a great segue to alternative facts because technically, a beverage derived from potatoes could technically be claimed to be potatoes, I suppose.
Vodka?
But that is not
Potato vodka.
But that is not a fact. That is an alternative
that's
fact.
wishful thinking.
That's an right. That's actually wishful thinking. But for
Transitive property.
this
So
You're drinking
heroin
a
is now
potato.
sesame?
for this segment, really, exactly. For this segment, we'll call it alternative facts, and we'll go with.
Poor Ben.
Yeah.
So I wanted to
40
talk
50%
about.
rum is just sugarcane.
I wanted to talk about some of the stuff that Kellyanne was saying about alternative facts, and I did say on my listing here that I think that she's now fully got the Trump disease.
Okay, so
Where,
so what'd she say?
She wasn't the worst. I think the press secretary was the worst.
which was actually the next
She
thing.
was defending the press secretary.
No, I
Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what he said was
Yeah.
idiotic.
Well,
What she
first
said
of
was-
all, he
She's the turd polisher.
he
yeah.
so the press
All right.
the Trump's new press secretary says to the press corps, who was asking him about attendance to the inauguration, that attendance was down from the Obama inaugurations, and he says, and I almost quote because I might have a couple of the words wrong, but basically he says it was the largest attended inauguration in history. Period. And
What he said was his largest viewed inauguration period.
which is also a lie.
Well, not necessarily.
No.
You go with streaming. And
No. And even with streaming, it was not the largest.
It was not
view.
the largest.
No,
Okay.
the Obama inauguration
In 2012.
in
2008.
in 8 was probably
Yeah,
the
2008,
largest
yeah.
viewed and attended. In the 2012 inauguration wasn't as well attended as this one, but it was viewed more. But the fact that the press secretary, who generally is supposed to supply the press corps, supposed to supply the press corps with whatever facts they should be printing, just told a smooth lie, and I just wanted to know
a smooth
it's just a smooth lie.
No, I think it's as unsmooth as it can be.
Go ahead.
I got one word to say to that, to the Trump administration. Focus!
Yeah, I guess
It's been the problem the whole time.
I guess
Focus!
That's been everybody's problem with Trump the entire time.
Hey, what's going on, podcasters? Let's acknowledge the good friends of the Loft Party Podcast. The Majestic Restaurant and Pendergast Club, carrying on Kansas City's tradition of great food and great jazz, 931 Broadway in Kansas City, Missouri. The J. Rieger Kansas City Distillery, whiskey, gin, vodka. That is, oh so good. And friend of the podcast and panelist, Lane Boland, managing to keep the podcast going. Apparently wealthy or not. Now onto our regularly scheduled program.
Focus on what you're doing. Like, act presidential, be presidential, do the things that presidents do. Don't lie. Don't bastardize.
Don't
their
worry about
traditions.
something so trivial as who the fuck
But
watched
honestly,
you.
like, you
Well,
have,
I mean,
you have
but-
the president of the
inauguration,
United
it's
States
trivial.
who got pissed off at Alec Baldwin for being on Saturday Night Live pretending to be him. I'm like, it's been on TV since '77. Have you never watched it? And in fact, I know you've been on it.
Right.
You know how the show goes. So relax. Just chill out. You're the president. It's going to
In
happen.
1977, when I was in a fraternity, it was hilarious.
Dude, that was like, when
That
I
was
was a
the
kid,
best.
that was like naughty watching TV.
Oh, yeah, well, let me tell you,
Naughty
everything
watching
shut down when
TV.
It
SNL
was. You
came
felt
on.
like you were doing
Yeah,
something
SNL,
wrong.
it felt like you were doing
We
something
shut
wrong.
down when that
It's like
came on.
HBO after 11.
which is my whole
Oh, that's
reasoning.
Playboy Chat.
Just
right.
my whole reasoning behind why I believe that Donald Trump should not be allowed to exercise his ability to utilize a Twitter handle that is not POTUS, but just as Donald J. Trump. And what I'm getting at with that is that coming from a former intelligence analyst perspective, 90% of any intelligence gathered is open source, that being what's readily available on your regular media platforms.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is that the policymakers of other foreign countries will be briefed with information that will include what the man has said in a capacity, whether or not it's as the President of the United States or not.
Right. Because you are the president.
Agreed.
That was very intelligent, Colin.
And so what I'm getting at is that he should not be allowed to engage in that sort of
That's
activity.
obviously why he
Even if it
did
is as Donald J. Trump, he's still making an ass of himself or letting out his own personal opinions that could give other policymakers in other countries an inside idea of what his mindset is going to be going into negotiations about whatever.
Not everybody.
I think it also shows you just honestly how irrational and thin-skinned he is.
Right,
And
how easily he
never
could be manipulated.
Well, and
Like,
I
it's
think
a bad
that's
idea.
that's my I guess real issue with him and the tweeting is because if you, as the POTUS now, are saying the same exact things you were saying as a private citizen, meaning a vast amount of 140 character asinine.
I don't care how much fucking
it's
money
called
he has.
BS.
He can't live a double life as the president on one side and Donald J.
Which
Trump
is
as the
why
other. He
he
can't represent
already
himself in
has-
two different ways.
He already has a group that's trying to sue him. So
Yeah.
already.
It happens all the time. Everybody sues the president all the time. You can't sue the president for stuff like that.
They're actually suing him for his personal
It's fine.
business.
It's
They're
never.
Well,
going to attack him forever. And
Well, I
ever.
think my.
Every
They're
president goes
attacking
through a million
him for
lawsuits.
being. Never mind.
I think my.
Yeah,
my
private
that's what I'm saying.
Well,
like Chris
well,
is saying,
They're,
it
they're
won't
trying
matter.
to force a Supreme Court case to determine where the line is drawn between protected speech from a president, which you cannot sue, and a private citizen that you can sue.
They're talking about though his allowing foreign diplomats or foreign
Well,
staying at his hotel.
yeah, as a president, you can't be receiving foreign money,
Completely
but
understood, but
if
it'll
you
be
still
interesting to
have
see.
interest in your Trump properties,
He doesn't control it anymore.
So you put him in
but-
trust, right?
But
That's what that's.
I mean, see, but now this is my problem with him, quote unquote, not controlling it anymore. It was just passed to your sons. You can't tell me, under any circumstance, that your sons are going to be there at Thanksgiving dinner or 4th of July or just Sunday dinner with the fucking folks, and they're not going
To take direction.
But
to-
guys, the definition, I don't mean to cut you off, but the legal,
Yeah.
the legal, I don't know what word to use here, but the common law ruling here is called, or the
Legal
premise,
consensus.
right, is called arm's length. And what that means is the decisions of these interests, you have to be beyond a first order consequence. In other words, Trump can't say, raise the prices of this, or
Right.
don't sell a room to that person.
Yeah.
In other words, it has to be a person who is not legally bound. Now, family bonds, the law says nothing about, but legal bonds. In other words, we have a contract here where you're technically in charge of my shit,
Yeah.
but I'm going to tell you what to do. That's still considered arm's length.
Yeah.
So it has to be beyond arm's length. So Trump technically is in the clear right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were
Legally.
saying
Yes.
the
Barely,
group that's
barely,
trying
right.
to
If they want to
sue
redefine
him,
that,
They
yeah,
want
they're
the
trying.
Supreme
No.
Court to
They're
figure out.
trying to decide if they're even do you even are you even the right people to do this? Like, why are you whoever it is? I don't.
they would have
I don't know
to
who
they would have to
it's
seek to prove that his sons are at arm's length.
I think this
Well,
is
and I
a
think it's a
classic
little bit
lawsuit
hard
that
to-
you want to go to the Supreme Court for a ruling to determine what is an applicable law. And there's a lot of those.
Well,
there's a ton of those.
Yes, but I'm like, how do you start? He's been in office 2 days. I'm like,
He's already causing all this shit.
I'm like, I mean, you don't even know what's going to happen.
Kennedy was shot for less.
He hasn't even finished filling his cabinet or defining what he wants to
Well,
do,
but-
and they're already trying. I mean,
George Bush was sued on the first day. I mean, he was sued on the first day as well. I mean,
Debbie?
yeah.
I did not know that.
After the election, they tried to get him on every election fraud issue that they possibly
well,
could. And
I
every,
mean, that's
it's a reasonable thing. What you try to do is try to come up with a constitutional question that would force its way to the Supreme Court, so you can define or clarify a law. And most of these things are backed by political organizations anyway, and that's how it goes. Every person gets sued.
Here's one thing, and I'm not no genius in all this stuff, but here's one thing that bothers me. Are we saying that a businessman or woman runs for president and gets elected, that they can't turn around and take their business and put it on the side? Or are we saying that only people that have gone to Yale or Harvard and been in government type affairs their whole life are the only ones can be in government? Because that's why Yale and Harvard and some of these people, Princeton, they really gear people to go towards government anymore.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that, I don't think it's a bad thing to let a business person, male or female,
I don't think that that's the issue.
I got a little bit of
that's not the
I don't
issue.
think that that's the issue at all. I think the issue really comes down to
it goes back to what Lane just said.
yeah. It's like if you're running your business, you can't run it and be the president.
Well, I'd say set it off to the side.
No,
what the
you
argument
have
is
you
is that you haven't set it off to the side.
you're supposed
Yeah.
to.
Well, that's what I mean by setting it to the
You-
side.
you're
You
supposed
cannot
to set
sign
it-
contracts. You cannot
It doesn't-
negotiate
It
deals.
doesn't
No.
matter. If I have a surrogate that's so close to me that they're literally doing everything I say. So if Ivanka or his stupid oldest kid, the dumb one with the bad hair, is running
Frankenstein?
Yeah.
Like
is
father, like
running
son.
all of his businesses.
I call him
do you
American Psycho. but,
really
yeah.
feel like that's at arm's length?
Well,
That he has nothing to do with it.
you know,
That's what he looks like.
I mean, I think
didn't the Clintons kind of do? I know it didn't necessarily do.
Clintons didn't have any money.
But they didn't have it. They didn't have
didn't have
a
any
business that they were running.
I mean, the
You know?
Clintons
They-
were
But they
broke.
never had a business.
Yeah, so the issue really isn't that he's a businessman. It's you're supposed to be able to put that business in a blind trust and have someone that is not associated to
Objective
you,
oversight.
But how could-
right, run it. But so
How could you not talk to your sons about it? And
that's
why-
the problem.
This is-
And why?
That's the problem.
And why would you
Hey, you
give
know
it
what?
to somebody else besides your sons?
I can solve this problem right now. All right?
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Trump administration, the Loft Party podcast will be your trustee while you're in office.
That would work.
We could do that. We could do that. Well, but I think between this table, we can decide what the hell goes on in a business.
For a small fee of 25 basis
Let's
points.
say we can. I want to see how the distribution works on
There
this,
you go. There you go.
and what we're going to be taxed on that distribution.
Yeah, really. But I think the like I said, the real problem isn't the fact that the fact that he is a businessman really could be an economy asset. But I think the problem is that he's not divesting himself far enough away that he still doesn't have influence over
There's
the
not,
decisions
yeah.
of the business.
Well, wouldn't that take a little bit of time just to do that?
No.
Well, it
He
shouldn't.
knew through the whole run for president that he needed to do
You didn't
that.
think he was going to get elected? Give me a break.
Well,
Oh,
but
yeah.
see,
he
well,
thought he was going to get
He
elected. Go
thought he
back
was
and
gonna
listen.
I think
don't
that,
know
well, the
either.
other, I mean, just like with the fact that he's got, what is it, 660 positions that he needs to fill, and really none of them are filled.
They confirmed 3, I
there's-
think,
okay.
either over the weekend or
They
today.
they
Yes.
got 2, and then they unless they got 1 today.
Yeah.
That's
So
not
there's-
exceptionally rare.
so-
They said Monday would probably be a big day.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Schumer,
But he hasn't
has
even
agreed.
nominated half of the ones
Schumer's
he needs
agreed
to.
to allow a lot of votes on the people that he has nominated. The big ones are going to be the Supreme Court, which Schumer said, I'm not even going to bring those people up for a vote. So that's a big deal. And then beyond that, every president deals with this. You can't nominate people before you're president, so that's impossible. You can say who you want to nominate, but you can't actually nominate them until you are president.
But I do think a
it's
lot
just
of,
the time of Lincoln. Like, I mean, my God.
Yeah, but I do think a lot of people that are running already have a fair idea who they want to nominate.
yeah.
I think the problem with Trump is he's like he literally seemed as if he just started figuring out who he wanted to nominate the day before he got elected.
I don't know if that's accurate.
I don't know if that's accurate, but that's how it feels.
But they
at
did
least
say
to,
in December the normal main characters that you want there have already been decided, and they're already working with the transition team.
I think
he didn't have half of his people
I
decided
think he
on.
has a major battle, not just with Democrats, but with Republicans who say these people aren't acceptable to us. We're not going to vote for them.
Yeah.
So he has to backtrack from that. And then he has a major problem with the Democrats being able to approve anybody. So I think this is a unique situation in where nobody likes him. And he's going to have a tough time getting anybody through.
Yeah,
and it's,
they were-
you got to find consensus
They
people.
had Rubio was on at least one of the panels, and he was not happy.
Well, listen, I mean, Paul
To say
Ryan
the
talked
least.
shit on the entire time during the campaign. And all of a sudden, they were acting like they were best
Oh,
friends
super
during the
best friends. I
inauguration.
know.
Like,
It's-
hey, let's go
Well,
hang out
didn't
and
we
get a
say
beer.
that the Republicans are very good at falling in line?
Well, aren't Democrats? Don't Democrats do
Oh,
that?
come on now.
not
It's
as,
a political-
I don't
it's
think
a
they're as
Pelosi and Reed and the power they had.
Come on.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Let's don't go there.
What are you over there saying?
Well, I think that once
Yeah.
again, I think the issue isn't falling in line. I heard it said once, you know, when they were talking about Hillary, they were like, you know, there's you know, lying and craziness that is kind of normal in politics, and Hillary kind of fell in that box. Like it was, but what we're seeing from Trump is like nobody understands exactly what the hell he's doing or what the hell he's thinking.
I love it.
And
that's why I'm saying it's unprecedented.
Yeah.
It's unprecedented that nobody likes him, and so everybody's freaked out. For example, the Republicans gave him a list of 20 people and said, these are the only people you can nominate for the Supreme Court, period. We won't even acknowledge anybody else that you want to put on the list. And he made the deal that he would pick people from the list of 20. So, you know,
we'll see if that holds.
If he wants to get anything done, he's going to have to do it. Otherwise, he's going to nominate people who will not be
the beauty of the
not
system.
be elected. And I like it. I like the trade-offs. I like the deals. And, you know, I'm all in favor of a backroom deal on these things.
I make good deals.
We'll see how it goes.
he makes huge deals.
I wish I did. I'm like amateur
I'm
land.
sitting here curious, you know, just got a bunch of shit done. What's everybody going to think?
I don't know, but the faster we stop talking about ovaries and start talking about dollar bills, the better off this country is going to be.
I thought we stopped talking about ovaries.
Well, we stopped
You mean
talking.
in general?
I'm willing to go back to talking about ovaries.
Are you, Chris?
It's an area of expertise.
That's the reason the politics has changed so much, is that it's become, the Democrats went totally with identity politics, and it really, they lost it on that.
Yeah.
They did. They lost it on identity politics.
Listen, it's a dirty game. It's been dirty since it started. Big deal. Everybody knows it. I mean, the cities were run by bosses for years. You know, the states all had, you know, their own political systems for years that you had to get along with. You know, that's just the way politics is.
Yeah, I like
you
to see
reward your friends, and but your friends better be friends at least
What do you
to
wanna
be
see?
able to get past.
Well, and I think that's the issue. It's not so much, 'cause like I say, I think every president, every elected official, for that matter, you know, goes and says, "Hey, you know what? I got a friend that I think can handle that job." The issue is, can they handle that job? You know, I think what we're seeing, with the exception of Maddox, is a bunch of people who have no freaking clue how to handle the job.
Right.
You know, you've got what's the Rick Perry, who literally couldn't even remember what the damn department was when they were asking him about it in the primaries. It's just.
Well, and you have Ben
I think-
Carson, who has no clue about urban development.
Did you guys know
I think
that-
he has no idea about urban, period. But that's just a whole nother story.
Do you know in a county, the only person that can elect the sheriff of that county is the constable?
I did not know that.
Yeah, the whole reason the constable is even elected by the people is to keep the sheriff in check, because he can't be arrested in his own county.
That's Maine.
Right? No, that's across the whole country. Now,
Maine, I know for sure.
Yeah. Now I'm taking a step further.
They have constables up there.
Yep. And Napoleon created a position for a corporal, which is very low level rank in the army. And the whole point of the corporal was as a common sense check on Napoleon. Right? That if his grandiosity just got too big, this kid would pop it. So what I'm getting at is we need a hustler in chief. And what I'm getting at is, you know, for the position, we'll make like a little competition, right? Where you're literally given $10 and you're dropped off in the inner city or rural area of your choosing. And the guy that makes the most money in, let's call it 90 days, is now the hustler in chief, who's in charge of making sure the president adheres to common sense, or the common sense of the common man.
There you go.
The problem is that they report to the president. The president can do whatever.
Oh, no, independent, right? Like a fourth branch of government.
That's exactly
Of
what
one
we need
dude.
is another
Or do that. No, I'm serious. It'd be great.
One dude or
Could you
that.
imagine having like Jay-Z, you know, smacking around Trump? Like, not smacking around, but like, dude, no. You can't say
This
that.
isn't gonna fly.
You
bro.
cannot. You
No.
cannot do that.
Are you high?
Yeah, I said, this is not happening in Brooklyn. I'm
I'd be
sorry.
okay with that.
Sounds interesting though.
The interesting thing to me too is, honestly, if you go back to the Constitution, these are just advise and consent. That's all the Congress can do, is advise and consent. The fact that they now think they have the power to approve people is actually unconstitutional. It is an advise and consent rule, and that's literally all they should be able to do if you go
I've
back
read
to the
that.
Constitution. And it's complete nonsense that they can block it. And it's nonsense that the Republicans could block Supreme Court justices. It's also nonsense that the Democrats can block cabinet appointees. You know, imagine if Lincoln had to go through this. He had half Republicans and half Democrats in his cabinet. You think that would have gone on today? They would have blocked that shit so fast. You know, nobody would have gotten through.
And what president was that?
That was
on Lincoln.
So he picked everybody who ran against him and made them cabinet members, and it was just crazy. So it was one of the best examples. In fact, Doris Kearns, is that her name? The historian. Yeah, Team of Rivals. Phenomenal book about how he brought in all of his rivals from different parties and made them cabinet members to make sure that what he wanted to get done got done. And they all hated him. But, I mean, they hate him. But then he ended up, you know, doing a pretty good job, all in all, because he had every opposing viewpoint. And so you're going to find winners and losers no matter what when something has to go to Congress. So it's kind of interesting.
Interesting. That is interesting.
All right, so the last thing on my list, just to lighten things up, is what's in the box? What's in the box? So
A dick.
I thought, I thought it was interesting.
You've been waiting for that whole time.
Lane is horrible. You're just
That line was great.
You're just horrible.
Lane, I miss you being on the podcast.
Wait.
This is horrible.
The old farce lost here.
It's from Saturday Night Live.
The
What
Justin
is it?
Timberlake thing?
Yeah.
What's in the box?
Yeah, no, he's talking about Dick in the Box.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta.
Dick in the box, I knew that.
Yeah, what's in the box? That's from the movie Seven.
Yeah.
Which I thought about when I was watching all of the inauguration stuff, and I saw that Melania gave Michelle a Tiffany box, and it was obviously a Tiffany box. There's nothing else comes in that
one
freaking
color.
box.
Yeah,
nothing else comes in that color blue box. And I do believe it was actually like a picture frame or something like that. But
Awesome way to.
With Trump in it.
but some of the
him.
memes were just hilarious. I think the funniest one being she gift wrapped and gave her speech back to her. and
gave her what?
Gave her speech back. I thought that was pretty funny. But it's.
I thought the help me one you showed me was pretty
Now,
good.
is this box like pretty recognizable?
Oh yeah, the Tiffany blue box. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Do you know-
Well, now
If
I will
that's
say
the
this:
case-
I don't think that it was.
Glock pistols coming to.
I thought it was interesting
So Glock pistols.
that. I thought that it was interesting that it was from
They come in
Tiffany's
pink, too.
because
I don't understand that.
when the when Trump was elected, well, actually even before when he was running, there had to be a ton of security and Secret Service that was surrounding him at all times, and any business within a several block radius was basically just not getting any business because you can't get any foot traffic in the area with that much security. To the point that the Tiffany store in the Trump Tower was almost going out of business because they couldn't. So I thought that this could very well not necessarily be so much a gift from one first lady to another as hey, Tiffany's, we're sorry. We'll buy something.
Hey, I can help pick up their business. Like, I have a pro tip for podcast land. If you're trying to serve up divorce summons, send it in a Tiffany box. I guarantee it'll get delivered.
Wow.
Wow.
You've been served.
Franny,
You guys think that's bad?
you
I think
don't
it's
want to
goddamn
listen
brilliant.
to that.
Does Franny know, like,
The Brothers Grimm strike again.
I honestly think, listen, I mean, giving a gift is a time-honored tradition.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
very nice.
Yeah, no, I thought it was classy.
I don't care
I thought
what
it was
was
very
in the
classy.
box. I mean, clearly she got something nice.
Yeah.
I don't care if it was from one of the stores in this place or not. It doesn't
No.
really matter. It's not like he went out to Piggly Wiggly and bought some veggie sausage and gave it to her. Yeah, I mean,
I thought it was a nice
it's gonna be
gesture.
nice. That was a nice gesture too.
Sure.
I didn't mind it, and I thought she looked great. And
No, I did
thought
too.
They
I thought
both
she
looked
looked
great.
really.
I did
thought
too.
She looked yeah,
Yeah.
did.
I thought they both handled it very classily. And clearly, if you watch, and I loved this, the Obamas were very much in charge up until the time when the transition.
Oh, yeah.
Guiding him, telling him which way to go, which
Yeah.
side of the car to get in.
Oh, yeah.
And all that. Like, no, you're over there. I'm here.
Yeah.
This is the way it goes. I liked that. I thought that was pretty.
Yeah.
My wife kind of notices that Michelle didn't know what to do with the box.
Well, she was
Yeah.
trying to hand it to a staffer, but
Yeah.
there were no staffers standing right there.
Like,
Like,
So
what do I do with this?
Michelle said, if that had been me and I was Michelle, I would have grabbed it like this and in a gesture of thanks.
Clutched it. Yeah.
just clutched the box.
and done that. And that's my wife observance of this. To
But
me,
she also had
I
a
would
lot of-
I would not have never noticed a
She also had a
like
lot of
that.
responsibilities on that day. Like, you can't be shaking hands and doing all that kind of stuff, clutching the box. Like, she had to hand it
She had to
off.
hand
Yeah,
it to
well,
her.
I get
typically
that.
that's what.
No, I'm good.
Typically, that's what happens. is
Stop
you get
reading your
something
emails.
and you
You hand
try
it
to
off.
get
I don't disagree, but I'm just saying that was my wife's observance. Is that, and I found it interesting because I wouldn't, I'm too stupid to see.
I can't
something
wait
like
till
that.
Chris gets elected president.
I would love that. I'll ask two really quick questions because
Can I be vice president?
Yes,
Thank
you're
you.
in. I'll ask two, and you can run it because I really just want to live on vacation.
Cool.
But two quick questions I thought were kind of interesting. One is, one thing he did that I thought was just bizarre was
I didn't mean to
he
do that
replaced,
like that.
and I know why.
He's
There
awesome.
traditionally had been a statue that Winston Churchill had given to the president, which was a bust of just Winston Churchill and sat on the presidential desk for years.
Right.
Obama replaced it with one of Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes.
And then immediately Trump replaced it back with the Winston Churchill
Winston
one,
Churchill,
which I
right.
thought was a horrendous move.
Yeah, I didn't think
Well,
that was.
and
I didn't
I
like
thought
that.
that
either.
was terrible.
I heard that, and then they responded and said that it was still there, that somebody was covering it.
Oh, they decided to cover the statue?
No,
No,
way
like
better.
somebody was blocking the view of it.
It was a white hood.
Yeah, exactly.
He never-
That's the first thing that goes
Apparently, he
through my
never
head. It's
pulled it
like,
out there, and
this
I
is-
got it. That's
this
what
is
I
just
understand,
bad.
so I
Yeah.
got to go with it.
Well, why replace them? Why
Trump's
not
a
put them
Chappelle
both
fan.
there?
I just think I thought that was a faux pas on everyone.
I think there's a lot of things that if you wanted to do it, you probably shouldn't have done it day one.
Right.
You know?
Completely agreed. Nobody would have noticed on day 45. And honestly, Martin Luther King deserves to be on the presidential desk. So
A lot of
and
a
Winston
lot of
Churchill can be there too if you want. But
Yeah,
big
yeah.
deal.
a lot of my friends were not a lot. I have a few gay friends, and they were very upset that on Saturday the LGBT page and the environmental page were both shut off
But-
for the White House.
Well, doesn't that happen every transition? That
yeah,
they
every
wipe-
transition.
They wipe the site and
When
rebuild
has
it?
Facebook
Yeah.
ever been, or it goes back to Twitter, it was not even an issue until Obama, so there's no precedent for it.
Yeah,
Well,
like,
fair
Yeah,
enough.
but they hardly had- they hardly
do
had
wipe
anything
the
until then.
sites, and you get to reconstruct them, and then they relaunch.
Well, it was like, this is no longer available. It wasn't like under construction. I mean, I don't care one way or another. I wasn't going out following the LGBT or the environmental page.
Sure.
That's not where I'm going to get my information. But they noticed it and were upset about it. It's just I was listening to a newscast on Saturday, and they were, everybody was so up in arms about the pictures from the inauguration and how they were one group said they weren't taken at the same time, and then another group was like they were, and
It was taken within 2 minutes of each other.
they were talking about, and that's
So-
exactly what the correspondent said. He was like, there are so many more important issues to be talking about.
But that is a tradition. I mean, that's such once
That
again,
it's
that's a
like,
tradition that happens
who
every
fucking
time.
cares about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was dumb. The other one I'd be super interested to know, and may take for hopefully to God not 8 years to figure out, but hopefully 4. It'll be interesting to see what Trump's relationship with the other presidents, and again, we were talking about it earlier with the President's Club. It's a very unique group. I think there's only 6 living people right now who know what it's like to be the president. And where will he fit in that group? Will he be a Carter who almost nobody talks to and they've kind of just shoved him aside? Or will he be like everybody else?
I think if I remember correctly, I did see him there.
He was
Yeah, he was at the football game.
I did see
He
was it? Okay.
What I'm saying, like, he has the right to go.
Yeah,
Him and
yeah,
Rosalind
I mean,
Malera.
he was a
If
former
you're in
president.
the President's Club, Carter's not in it. Like, he's on the bench. You know, he's like your JV quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's like very, very good.
Well, also, the Bushes didn't endorse Donald Trump ever, did they?
So that was the interesting thing.
No, but they
because
haven't really. They've been very.
George Bush
quiet.
made it very clear on his
Yeah.
way out, and it was part of his letter that was released that said, I'm not going to open my mouth. Nobody else understands the difficulty of this job.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and you do whatever you want. And I'll give him credit for 8 years of being quiet, you know, and he didn't open his
He
mouth.
went and painted and rode his bike.
Beyond that, the only thing he did do that was publicly active was support the African American Museum that they were building, which is how he and Michelle Obama became such good friends. And so it's weird that in a bizarre way, he's friends with both the Clintons, who beat the shit out of his dad, you know, and would talk really bad about the Bushes for a long time, and they became very good friends. They're super tight. And then he also became very good friends with Michelle Obama. You wonder, it's such a unique club. You wonder where Trump's place will be if he understands the gravitas of the office and how it goes and what happens. I don't know that he does.
Yeah.
And that
or
is
if
my
he
one thing.
will in the future.
If he will in the future. Does 4 years in an office like the presidency change you to where you are now included amongst that membership?
Yeah.
Or are you a Carter who is literally kind of shoved to the outside and they don't consult him at all and nobody talks to him and that kind of thing?
Except
and Carter
North
sounds like
Korea.
good things. What's that?
Except North Korea.
Yeah, well, yeah, they love to talk to him. Will you come over here and build some houses for us? But it'll be interesting to see where his place in history goes out.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Because they clearly everybody seemed to distance themselves a little bit at the time. Like, we don't know what the hell we're getting into.
Yeah.
Was the feeling I got watching it. I'm
Yeah.
like, you've seen bananas. It's not like you lost to a good rival or anything. Like somebody you respected and somebody, like, it was an honorable fight and you lost. Which I think a lot of people can handle. You get over the bitterness eventually.
Yeah.
This was weird.
Yeah, you know, I will say, like the Clintons or not, I did think it took a fair amount of grace for Hillary to come. I expected Bill to come. I did. I mean, you know, he was the president.
This is the only shot at getting Melania's phone number.
I was going to say it's a party with hot chicks. He's going to be there in November.
Him and Bill Cosby.
Hey,
Far.
I think Trump deserves some credit for,
The South Park reference.
Trump recognized her very well.
Yeah,
But I will say,
He did a good job with
if
that.
you want to look back at history, the way George Bush did it was in the inaugural address that he gave at the public mall. He acknowledged the fight that Al Gore had put up, and in the most public of ways, told him they respected him and it was a great race, and that he, really valued the experience and his leadership and the time in the public service. Trump didn't do it until the almost hidden congressional lunch, which they barely switched to right at the very end.
Right.
Which is a very, very, very different way to handle things.
Well, I agree, but Trump is going to always handle things in a different way.
It seems as if. Well, out there in podcast land, I think we've had quite a spirited discussion as always, and I think probably this is as good a time as any to end this podcast in the way that I end all podcasts, and that is with the toast that started it all for me, and that is to good times with good people.
I think you keep going on this for a while.
And